What's life about? If you don't go through it as a man's man. You say, suck it up. Take the fall, do the time. That's made you who you are. That makes you what you are. How long have we been around this thing of ours? This Cosa Nostra. 120 years. I mean, what's it about? It's about the rules, parameters. When you take the beating for the friend, you don't run, you don't lay down. You don't betray who you are, what you are.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem is basic. You pick it up in the street. That goes with the street. You got to remember Angie here. I love this guy. I loved him. And he was stupid. He never listened to me. He always wanted the goddamn dope money. He never rolled. Do you know that? He never rolled. My brother Gene, Joey the Mig, they don't roll. They're doing 1,000 years now. They don't roll. They don't rat, White. That's the rule. You don't break, you don't rat. Basic rules. Gives you a little power, right? Not the kind of power these feds have. God forbid, right? God forbid we pull their chain in public, right? Fucking dress better than them, they take it personal, like it's a fucking vendetta, right? They're supposed to act better than the rest of us. Just want me to be something I wasn't even born to be.
Humble.
Humble.
They want you to be humble.
Yeah, so you humble me. What you got now?
$50,000 was the head of the Westies, a guy named Bosko, comes to me and says, Sammy, the head guy on the jury panel for John's trial, he's facing life. I could get to him. Really. All right, let's get to him. I want to talk to him. Let's get to him. I work out an agreement that I will give him $60,000. $20,000 up front, $20,000 in the middle of the trial, and $20,000 at the end. I'll tell him a little bit more. If he reneges in any way, shape, or form, and he can go to the feds with this, I'll kill him. Once he takes that 20, he's got to be committed. I had 3 cases going. I got pinched in Arizona in February of 2000 on an ecstasy case. January of 2001, the same type of case, but by the feds in New York.
Bosko?
Bosko?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I know Bosko very, very well. Bosko left the country, and he wound up in one of those wars out there in Yugoslavia, or whatever they were. And who was the guy, the main guy? Milosevic, and he was over there. The United States was dying to get their hands on him because he took over the Westies, the Irish gang.
On March 13th, 1987, which happened to be Friday the 13th, the jury, which included Pape, acquitted Gotti and his co-defendants of all the charges. In 1992, George Pape was brought to trial for obstruction of justice. Bosko was indicted along with Pape, but when Sammy Gravano began cooperating, the Gotti defense team supplied Bosko with Sammy's 302s. Where Sammy mentioned him, so Bosko lamped it back to Serbia. Sammy testified at Pape's trial. He said in order to make the payments, he gave the $60,000 to an intermediate, and he identified that person as Bosko Radonjich, who he described as the leader of the Westies. While back in Serbia, Bosko opened up several casinos and
out of here, just like Bosko got the fuck out. I'm going. And let me tell you one more thing. Bosko fled the country. Never got caught. Never got caught. He was arrested. He went out on bail and took off. He went back to Yugoslavia. He was fighting in one of those wars over there. They caught him coming back into the United States in 1999. They got in touch with me. They wanted me to help. I said, no, no thanks. I got busted in 2000. They wanted me to testify against him or do this and do that against my family. You know that whole story. I told him, here, take this. My deal is over. 2 years. I'm not testifying. They held Bosko for 5 months.
Just want me to be something I wasn't even born to be.
Humble.
Humble.
They want you to be humble.
Yeah, so you humble me. What you got now? You got a war? You got a global war? You got your veritable fucking snowstorms of cocaine and smack, whatever the hell else they shove in their veins. You got a worldwide crime syndicate now. There's no rules. There's no parameters. There's no feelings. There's no feelings for this country.
Anarchy.
You got anarchy. So? 5, 10 years from now, they're gonna wish it was American Cosa Nostra. 5, 10 years from now. They're gonna miss John Gotti.
And he went back to Yugoslavia, wherever the fuck they were, in the war. And he died out there. I never put him away. The writer who wrote the article about testifying, they held Bosko for 5 months. There was a story about him in Esquire magazine. I know the writer who wrote it. He gave me the magazine. After 5 months, I'm the only guy who could have put him in jail, and I'm the only guy who didn't testify against him. They let him go. They couldn't hold him. And he went back. In Europe, said, Sammy, I knew him. I lived with him for months and months and months in that war to write this story. It's in Esquire, or an old copy. He said, you know how many times it's a pleasure to meet you. You know how many times this guy would talk about you? This fucking guy idolized you. He knew that you wouldn't testify once you were on your own. This fucking guy idolized you. He knew that you wouldn't testify once you were on your own. He stood up, you stood up, he was gone. But he got away. He rigged the trial with me to get John Gotti out of prison, and there's nobody who could put him in prison but me. He snuck back into the country, he had blueprints of. They got in touch with me and they said, Sammy, we want you to testify against him about the trial with John Gotti. And I refused. This was after my cooperation. I refused. They held him 5 months. They couldn't hold him any longer, and they had to let him go. He did an article with a writer. I got the magazine. The guy went out there, you know, as a writer, and he was talking to all these people. He bunks into Bosko, and he stays with him, and he's talking with him, and Bosko tells him the story about me, about the whole thing, and how I refused.
On December 31st, 1999, he flew from Belgrade to Cuba and was headed to Cancun, Mexico. When the FBI learned that he was a passenger on the flight, they had the U.S. military force the plane to make an emergency landing at Miami International Airport, and they placed Bosko under arrest for the 1987 jury rigging. But as luck would have it, the following February of 2000, Sammy Gravano was arrested for the ecstasy case in Arizona. As a result, he could not be called as a witness, and Bosko was released.
My cooperation, I refused. They held him 5 months. They couldn't hold him any longer, and they had to let him go. He did an article with a writer. I got the magazine. The guy went out there, you know, as a writer, and he was talking to all these people. He bunks into Bosko, and he stays with him, and he's talking with him, and Bosko tells him the story about me, about the whole thing, and how I refused, and that's how he got out of the country, went back in his little war over there, and I believe he died now. He was Czechoslovakian. I don't know how the fuck a Czechoslovakian comes in and takes over an Irish mob, but he took over. He was more legit. It was tough, he was dangerous, but he was nuts as well. One thing he did one day, he pulled up in front of the Ravenite Club in Little Italy, thank God, and they left. They're still crazy. But Bosko was the real deal. When John was on trial, he came to me, Bosko, and he said, the lead juror, the jury foreman, is my friend. You know him? Yes. Will he take some money? Could we talk to him? He'll do whatever I tell him to do. You sure? Yeah. He's in the military. Well, he's not in the military, but his wife is a major or something in the military. Handle this deal. It's too sensitive. I says, make an appointment with him. I want to meet him. Let me meet him. I meet him at an appointment. And I said, you're the jury foreman? Yeah. Bosko will ask you to do something, so will I. And I'll take care of you. Will you do as I tell you? Yeah. He's doing a show and not bothering anybody. So there's these people that want to just put people down all the time. And I'm not one of them. I think he's doing a great job. Matter of fact, if he ever wanted to come on my platform and talk with me and whatever, he's got an open invitation.
Country. It's Czech Republic and Slovakia, but he's a Sammy claims in 2002 that Bosko was in this magazine and he knew Sammy would never rat on him, and that's when this magazine was written. No, it was written 5 years before, as he says, Esquire magazine. Okay. Boss, which is Bosko. Here he is right here. This is Serbian boss, died and passed away in 2011.